Okay. So let's see, we got some more people. We've got, who else would like to go next? Nick, are you with us? John?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll go.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah, thanks for having this. I've mostly taught college regenerative design curriculum, both at a community college and at the oldest art school in the West. But more recently, I've been taking a shift and teaching preschool kids insects. And I would say that the number one problem with education is that we're too focused on problems. And I really appreciated Catherine and Jean's focus on solutions and stories. I think this whole postmodern deconstructivist epistemology has only led us to have dismantled an entire colonial paradigm that really leaves us nothing else. But the stories and the solution-oriented democratic spirit of what I'm hearing, that's in my years of teaching, very hands-on, very solution-oriented. Those are my proudest students, are the ones that rewire their brains into a story for regenerative paradigm and then enact a solution. But endlessly talking about the problems, boy, I paid a lot of money in college to talk about that, and it's okay, but not where I like to emphasize things. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Colleen, if you missed it, we're just doing just a brief introduction where you're sitting at today and what you see as being a problem that in education that you'd like to see fixed, and something that could be what brought you here.
Well, I'm Colleen Dick, and fortunately I had a cancellation which allowed me to be here, but I'm sorry to be late.
That's all right.
My background is in food science and nutrition and biochemistry, and had the opportunity to teach those subjects at the college level for a period of time. But I am most interested at this particular point in time about how to develop educational systems for our regenerative villages. And I would like to get the kids off of their butts and out of rows. I think it's very unnatural. I mean, since when is an 8-year-old boy expressing his nature sitting down? It just makes no sense to me at all that we have done this to our children. So I think that there's some real hands-on things that we can do with our kids. I think that naturally their developmental phases equip them for discovery, and they're very, very curious, typically as children. And I mean, the one word they say more than anything else is why. And then our teenagers, at least in my study of developmental phases, they're supposed to be differentiating and individualizing at that point. And so what do? We stick them in a row and tell them to be quiet. Makes no sense. So I would like to figure out ways that we can help the developmental phases actually fulfill their functions, so that we have adults that actually are ready to go forward in the world and have the tools and the maturity to do so. So anyway, I'm in Alpine, Utah, and we're having a blizzard today. So
oh no.
That's how it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Christina?
Yes.
We're just doing just that, since this is the first time, we're just doing a traditional introduction, just where you are, who you are and where you're from, and just basically, what problems do you see, a problem that you see in education that you think needs to be addressed? That's something that may have brought you to this meeting today.
Yes, I am Christiana Gardikiotti. I am in southern Greece, and I am trying to revitalize the 24 villages that lay empty in here by making a pilot regenerative village. And the reason why I am here is because we had a school, the first agricultural school in our country, in my village, and now it's absolutely dead. And I would like to go in there and teach entrepreneurship in the century that we live in, but with nature at the center of it all.
Good. Anybody else that would like to share? I know we got John. Are you there? Or Ulysses?
Yeah, I'm there.
Okay,
Give me a
John.
second. My internet is not so good. That's why I've switched off
Okay.
my camera.
Okay,
I'm
no
John
problem.
from Germany. For me, it's also kind of three things I would say. Regenerative education coming from regenerative agriculture. We're doing agroforestry projects in Africa. And I'm more about the university, like higher education at African universities, European universities, business background, business schools, and also trying to do it more hands-on and facilitating a space where serendipity and synchronicity kind of can happen. And about your question about the problem, what I see, it became, at least in Europe, very bureaucratic. Like there's a lot of like bureaucracy which you have to handle. Even if you are able to lecture cool courses, like it just goes under with all the stress of accreditation and those things. That's why we decided to come up with the University for the Planet. In Norway, they have 1.3 trillion euros for the future generations. And if we just keep that money, there will be no future. So we have some Norwegian partners trying to get some substantial funding to set up the University for the Planet. No bureaucracy, no credits, no certificates, just people working on things around the world. That's where we're on, and we got some funding as well from the European Union to do some research on regenerative education worldwide. We've set up an Excel sheet around that. Who's interested, I can share that, or who has nice ideas about places which we should visit. And I just got, before this call, an invitation by a friend of mine, Manish Jain. They have started the Ecoversity Network, really cool places all over the world. And there's a conference at the end of the month. I will just share it in the chat, an online conference about reimagine education, which could be also quite interesting for some people here.
Okay, that sounds great. Okay, Ulysses?
Yes, sorry.
Oh, no problem.
Well, this is Ulysses. Sorry, I can turn off on the video. I am from Mexico, here in Barcelona, and I have interest in understanding the perspective of education. I think we are living in turbulent moments, not turbulent times, where artificial intelligence is coming, and I don't know what is the posture about, what is the idea, how this will impact us. And I have another thing that captured my attention, for example, centralized testing or centralized education. I think most of the technology now in education is saying to scale education, but this scaling education is very basic. It's just watching videos. Most of the biggest platforms that say that we will solve education at scale, they are not cultivating critical thinking. They are just cultivating how to certify in a training that is just watch a video.
Yeah.
And I think the future of education is need to be something else. I would like to know, well, ideas, and what do you think about all this?
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. It's nice hearing from each of you. I know it takes up a lot of time for a meeting, but now we have some understanding of who we're talking with and what your concerns are, and provides us with some direction. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to my presentation and Okay, so you've all shared some of your concerns. Here are some of the common concerns that are out there that are facing school today. I do want to say before I go through this list, you talked about how the education needs to change and how it's outdated. Well, there is a person, a professor from Denmark. She wrote a book. Her name is Gina, but I can't remember her last name. She has a book coming out, and I listened to the podcast that someone had with her, and it's on the pedagogies of collapse. And it should be coming out soon. And she was looking at the history of education, and she went back to the 19th century, and she pointed out one of the problems that we are facing is that when education first started out, we were preparing the students and people to work in the during the Industrial Revolution, and it hasn't really changed. And we're still stuck with that methodology and that purpose. So yes, the purpose of education does need to change. So here, we may have already discussed some of these, but here may be some other ones. The first one is inequality and access to education. You know, some kids have to travel long distances just to get to school. And I know when I went to school, there were kids that were, I lived out in a rural area, and there were kids that were on the bus for 2 hours just to get to school, and then 2 hours to get home. So that's a problem. Some of them don't have the necessary resources or funding to be able to attend school. And then, of course, there are some educational disparities that include, low-income families, being a minority, living as a minority, and as well as physical and some learning disabilities that could create a disparity. Of course, outdated teaching methods are a big problem. The traditional teaching methods usually rely a lot on rote memorization and a one-size-fits-all approach. These do not reach all the students. You know, each of us have our own preferred learning methods, and a lot of times we find teachers who the way they teach just doesn't work for us. And also students are struggling to stay engaged during the learning process because they don't find the material relevant or even interesting. So overemphasis on standardized tests, I already pointed that out. I feel that that's a big problem. When I went through my master's and my doctorate learning, there was a major discussion about how assessment should mirror instruction. And standardized testing does not that. You know, no teacher that I know of teaches using multiple choice. And so what you end up getting is a teach for the test and a hope for the best, because the government and the school boards the states are looking at those test scores and holding schools accountable sometimes to those, at least here in the United States. Also, this standardized testing that limits creativity and critical thinking skills. And the high stakes testing can also create a lot of stressful learning environments that can lead to anxiety and mental health issues. And there's a big discrepancy in funding. Even here in the United States, different schools here in the United States, at least in California, different schools are funded differently. Some schools have a lot of money, some schools have little. In many parts of the world, the schools are suffering, education is suffering because of the lack of funding. And that can lead to inadequate resources, outdated materials, and underpaid teachers. Another big problem is the lack of preparation for real world skills. The major focus is on academic knowledge rather than on practical skills, the development of practical skills. This knowledge leads to not learning the basic skills that they will need later on in life, such as being able to create a budget for your family, how to manage time and interpersonal communication. And of course, another major problem is the technological divide. The digital divide means that not all students have access to technology. They may be lacking computers, the access to the internet, and all these can hinder the learning processes and opportunities. Here in the United States, the COVID epidemic, I saw, at least in California, it provided students with better access to computers and the internet, as kids had to, get their education from online, but it's still a problem. So here we have these problems today, and Albert Einstein once said we cannot solve our problems with the same kind of thinking that we used when we created them. And that's why all of us are here today, looking at, regenerative education. And so I'd like to have just a little idea. Some of you already mentioned it and talked about it, but in your mind, what is regenerative education, and what does it have to offer that is different from what we already find in schools today? So, if you have, I'd like to hear some of your thoughts on what you think regenerative education is.
Is there anybody here that really enjoys beating their head against the wall? I didn't see a lot of hands go up.
Okay.
I posted a quote from Buckminster Fuller, which I've always really liked. It says, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete."
Yeah.
And the examples that I continue to find around the world that are really successful actually do that. Just before that post in the chat, I posted a link to a TED Talk by Ricardo Semler, who created the Lumii schools in Brazil, which are so contrary to the normal form of schools that he can't get them to take off, but the students they turn out are head and shoulders above the ones coming from the public schools. So I would encourage you to watch the TED Talk, because it's just, Ricardo is an unbelievable person. He took over a mid-sized manufacturing business from his father in Brazil 30 years ago. And he simply transformed the company. He wrote a book about it called Maverick. And Semco was a mecca for C-suite executives from the US and around the world, actually, in the late 80s, early 90s. And when they got there and found out what he was doing, they ran away in fear, because his entire organization is built on enabling employees to do stuff, as opposed to a command and control methodology. In the book, he talks about one place where he decided that he ought to teach all of the departments about how to run a business. So he taught them finance and accounting and management and all the other stuff. And he said, but there was one segment of the organization who thought he was charging them too much rent, so they moved out. And he said, and I don't know where they moved to, but it doesn't matter because they always deliver on time. Now think about a mentality that will think about the relationship, that control isn't relevant. The part that's really meaningful is they always deliver on time. So, I mean, it's just, he has some ideas that I've been following him for 25 years, and it's just amazing. So I recommend the TED Talk.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? I want to offer their opinion, what they think regenerative education is all about.
For me, it's all about life. So that is nature, that is joy of living, that is the exuberance that comes with creativity, that's the curiosity for exploring and the freedom to do that. We're so afraid of life. So few of us actually engage in it, and most of our culture and structures are designed to tame it, to eliminate it, to make it safe and standardized and unlivable. So just the opposite. Follow childhood, that's what childhood's all about. If we actually created a thing where children thrived, where they enjoyed being there and enjoyed coming back, I mean, you can follow what makes that happen. Let them be the teachers.
Yeah, you hear a lot about how kids come to school with a thoroughly involved in their learning and with a joy of learning, and by the second and third grade, they're turned off.
Yeah, they have
And
to
so
sit down and shut up and listen.
Yeah. Well, and like I said, we did that to them because we wanted to prepare them to go to the factories and work in the factories and to do what they tell and listen to the rules and follow the rules.
And it's confronting. When a kid asks you why, it's confronting.
Yes.
You don't know. You got to go figure it out because you haven't been told. We weren't raised that way. So it's confronting. So we just tell them to go away and shut up. We don't have to show our own ignorance.
Well, I'd always tell my students, I taught math and science, and I pointed out to them, well, there are two things. First of all, math and science, it's not about, you probably won't use the math when you get older. You probably will not use, you use some of this science, you may not be aware of it, but you may use it. But you will always use the problem solving that you develop, at least in my class, because that's how I taught math and science, is all about problem solving. I also pointed out to them that in today's times, I said, we don't know what we need to be teaching you, because it's highly likely as a middle school teacher, by the time you get out of high school and even out of college, you're going to be doing a job that doesn't even exist today. So basically, our job is to teach you to be learners, because you're going to have to learn how to learn on your own. And that's what life is about. So I'm sorry.
I think they should learn to create their own work.
Yep. Yeah. So
instead of going to work for somebody else.
You had your hand up at one time. You still with us, Ulysses? Okay, I guess not. Anybody else?
I can give it a go.
Okay, good.
So for me, the goal in my mind is to reach that state where we can thrive within the means of nature. And for me, the regenerative education is giving the next generation the tools, the values, all of the necessary capacities to be able to first envision that, and then to make it reality. So that's my sort of idea of what regenerative education is.
Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on. I'm going to go back. Ariana, do you have something you'd like to share? No? Okay.
Oh, sorry. I had a hard time unmuting. But yeah, I just wanted to share really quickly. First, Catherine, I love what you shared. But when I think of a regenerative system, I think of a system that honors every single aspect, factor, element, and its unique wisdom, its unique contribution. And I feel like regenerative education would be, the teaching would be really teaching the children how to learn about themselves and how to access their truth and their essence and their creativity, because it's unique. And every single child has a unique contribution. So it's like educating them to self-educate, like what is their own truth? What is their own knowing? And yeah, I don't really know how that could be done, but that's just really alive for me, and something I wish I had as a child, of really understanding how to know me, and my body, and how I work, how my mind works, how to access what feels true to me, what doesn't. So yeah, that's just a little tidbit I wanted to add in.
Well, and then I'd like to, at some point in time, we'd like to discuss, Chick shared with me a while back of what he's been working on, and he talked about identity literacy. And that's something I have not heard about here in the United States. I don't, at least not in California. And I think that's very important, that students be able to, look at themselves and see that, see how they fit in. And so, yeah, I think that's a very important approach too. So I'm anybody else before I just I'm going to discuss. Yes.
Can I
Catherine?
add something? Because I know on the slide you shared that one of the issues was funding. And I just want to share that in the class that I taught with entrepreneurship, I did not give the kids money.
No.
They had no money to start their business. What they did get was encouragement to find mentors in the business that they wanted to start. So they had an idea, and then they'd go see who else was doing it and go talk to them and ask them if they would be willing to mentor them. So I didn't give them resources. I encouraged them to find their resources. They funded their business by getting somebody to pay them to do it.
Mhm.
That was how they got money. So I think that our story of poor me is exactly that, a story of poor me. That
Yeah.
if we get out of that and just were more focused on doing what we needed to do, we find ways. And that's the fun of it. That's the creativity, that's the learning, that's the agency growth that comes from knowing that you can do that you have done that, not having somebody hand it to you. And that goes for schools as well as kids. Schools don't need near the money they think they do. They just need to be more creative about getting what they think they need. I mean, they can make play equipment if they need to. I mean, you just don't have to have as much money as we think we do. We just feel we have to buy it instead of make it. And that's part of the problem.
And money is often a disadvantage.
Yeah, can be.
Yep.
It
Yes, in
definitely
fact,
can be.
businesses that get a lot of money often fail because they spend money instead of think about what it is that they actually need to do to be more effective. So and I actually worked for a business like that was busy spending money and not thinking about the business, not taking the time to build the relationships and all.
Right. Well, and then I've seen schools, always looking for the quick fix, and the quick fix, is just throw money at it. And the other thing that I saw happening in schools is they would do things and then they would say, see here, we threw money at this, here's this program. And it was just window dressing. It didn't, yeah. And it was just window dressing that they could point to. And so, well, this is what we have done and what we've accomplished. And it was not very meaningful. Yeah. So let me just look at, I kind of went out really quickly and we'll go over this, want to kind of go over. Oh, well, here they are. So regenerative education, just real quickly, it seeks a deep understanding of the natural world and relationships between all living things. So basically, we're talking about eco-literacy, looking at helping out the planet. What can we do to regenerate the planet and ecosystems? It's a holistic approach that integrates environmental, social, and economic considerations into the educational process. Regenerative education encourages students to think critically, creatively, and empathetically. It encourages students to take active roles in shaping their community and the world around them. So get them involved with their community. In recognizing that no one person or organization can solve the complex environmental and social challenges that we face today, the emphasis in regenerative education is on the importance of collaboration and partnership in order to solve those problems. It encourages an interdisciplinary approach. I see in education, I see a lot of focus on, let's bring up those math scores, let's bring up those English scores. We need more interdisciplinary teaching. And so we can bring together diverse perspectives and fields of knowledge that can develop innovative solutions to the problems facing the world and our society and our environments today. So with that in mind, we're getting close to the end of the talk time. We got a little bit of time left. I would like to have you share what you would like to see accomplished by this group. What should be our purpose? I know Chick had his plan is developing a curriculum. Is that correct? You want a curriculum that you could share and be used by school boards or schools?
So I've just had the first advisory board meeting, and some of the feedback that I was getting have reshaped the direction slightly. The curriculum building side is going to be pushed to the back and really to focus on leveraging the identity piece that I'm working on currently, and to use that as a means to create a powerful roundtable discussion between different stakeholders and negotiate an output of what sustainability education should be like, a bit like this, but bringing in a lot more diverse voices and then creating a consensus out of that. So I think that is probably going to be the most focused value add of what I'm trying to do. But I can give you an update on that as we sort of develop.
Okay. Well, what I'd like to see happening is, because I don't want this all to be, this is a group and I want it to be an interactive group and us all working together at what we want to try to accomplish. So at some point in time, when you are ready, we would be a venue that you can share your thoughts on it, because I'd like to hear more about identity education and where you think it should go. That would be a neat presentation.
I'd love that, yeah. And every time I come and speak about this to a group and open it up for discussion, I hear many different ideas pop in, and it's a fantastic sort of bouncing board for sort of formulating and refining. And yes, I'd love to do that. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yes, and anybody else who has something that they would like to share and present. I've been listening to some. You okay? Yes.
So the idea of accomplishing.
Okay.
I don't think that I'm actually trying to accomplish anything in particular. Okay? I continue to find examples that I find meaningful, and I share with them with other people to elicit their thoughts about what I thought was meaningful. And sometimes they tell me that I'm full of whatever, and which is okay, because it's all about trial and learning, not trial and error. I wish we could just get away from this trial and error thing. And so that's sufficient. And a friend of mine sent me this video a couple months ago, which is talking about climate change. And it's an awesome video. And I watched it 3 or 4 times, and I said to myself, this is actually a video about talking about anything. How to initiate a discussion without running over people. So I'm going to post a link and share it with you, because I think it's just awesome. And that was my thought.
Okay, yeah, so if you post that in chat and then I'll record it at the end of the meeting, that'd be great. Well, when I'm looking at it, I would like to have some purpose in that we're moving into some type of direction that we can kind of direct kind of the topics that we are going to cover. I don't know if we want to create something that, that we could actually take to a school board. I talked to one person the other day that attended one of my meetings. He actually is working in a group in a school district, and they're working at developing change. And so he's giving feedback. His group is developing a feedback to give to the schools and about how to change their curriculum. So the other thing is, we could be working on developing curriculum such as, climate change curriculum. In the 70s, in the 90s, when I first started teaching, We taught a lot of about ecosystems and environmental education. And then California, we had what they called the Back to the Basics movement. And they wanted everybody going back to the basic math, basic English, basic science. And that environmental learning and teaching went away, and it shouldn't have, I feel. So, yeah. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Do we have a goal that we are trying to get at? I'd like to make it more than just coming here and just having chit chat every week. Okay, see, I've got, the other thing I'd like to hear from you saying, I'm going to shut this presentation down so I can see all faces and hands. I'd like to hear about some of your thoughts as topics that we can discuss, so I can be thinking ahead of what to provide and looking for presenters or present something myself or finding someone to present it. Chick, I see your hand up, and then Catherine.
Sure. I do agree with you about sort of having some sort of outcome. It doesn't have to be rushed, or it doesn't have to be forced, but working towards something feels quite good. In terms of curriculum and resources, I do feel like I've done a lot of research, and there's a lot out there, particularly on a big, more well discussed subjects like climate change. But I do wonder if a lot of those resources are accessible to teachers. And I think that's something that is one subject that I recognize as a need. It's so spread out and so deep in the ocean of data that not everything is collated in a way that's really useful for educators. The second, I think, is that even when you look at all of those resources, it's very, very narrow in the breadth of what they sort of cover in the curriculums that they have. And it lacks a lot of the dimensions of how communities could be sustained, or how individual in a sustainability could be developed, and how to overcome trauma. You know, all of these like components that actually lead the cascade of larger positive impacts is just not covered. So it might be interesting to look at what's missing right now in the world out there, discussed within the sort of sustainability education sector, and then focus on those to be able to plug the holes, I suppose.
Yeah,
just an idea.
Yeah, back in the 90s, when the internet first started coming out, there were all kinds of teachers were putting up repositories that you could find stuff, free stuff available for use. And I'm not seeing those anymore. I haven't seen them for a while. They've kind of gone away. Even as I was trying to put together some presentations and trying to access pictures, I used to be able to go into, I use, I'm a Mozilla or Firefox user. I go in and I set the photos up for free to share and use and modify, and so it limits. I'm not getting into any copyright photos. And I tell you what, I can't find them. I can't find them.
You know where they went? They went to the homeschoolers. That's where it is. You start looking up the homeschooling organizations and you'll find all that free stuff. That's where it is.
Okay, so I'll just start to look, because I'm in the process of building a website for this group to house resources and curriculum and anything that we create together. I would like to house it there on this website, so that everybody we can start giving out the address to people so they can get access. And I don't expect to make any money from it, but I want it free to teachers like it used to be. Yeah. So, Catherine? Oh, you muted.
Yeah, sorry, the dogs went crazy. A couple of things. I would like to see us tackle a project. I think it might be good to set up some criteria once we decide on a project for how we want to bring things forward. And Chair, I would ask you how we can help you. And I realize this is a difficult question. It's not easy to receive help. It's not easy to know how people can contribute without feeling like you have to do a lot of background so that they're on the same page kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I guess I would encourage you to think about what you can ask for that we could be able to participate with you. I think that would be probably good for both sides,
Okay.
actually. And the other thing I would caution us about, and you can tell me I'm full of beans, that's okay. I am all for nature, but I also see that it is really hard to get out of the dirt with nature, and you need to be in the dirt. So I actually tell people that one of the things they need to do is put their hands in the dirt. That's, if you want to know one thing to do, that's it. But it means that people don't understand the applicability of what we learn from nature to other things. And so that's, for me, something that we could really, if we could clearly elucidate, be really helpful, because people do not see the translation from, okay, I'm in a garden, to now I'm running a company. What the hell is the difference? It just doesn't compute for folks. So clarifying that, those links would be incredibly helpful.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree with you. The person that wrote, like I said, the pedagogies of collapse, she talked about how regenerative thinking is messy. And then one of the things that makes it messy is because there are too many cases where, regenerative education, any regenerative, is about inclusion, including everyone, equity and dealing with the inequalities. And so you got to you make sure that you are being inclusive and not exclusive. And so,
and how do you do that? What does that mean?
Yeah,
in actual,
well, you want to make sure you include everybody, and then and sometimes including some people, it's going to get messy. It's kind of hard to deal with them, but it's about because we are here on this earth, and we are all together, and it's not just humans. It's all the humans, but it's also we are together with the earth and all the creatures. It's a oneness.
Women change babies. We can do mess.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I change a lot of diapers too. Christina.
Yes.
You have your hand up?
Oh. Can you hear me? Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking to suggest that I would like to become part of a team that would have a very basic understanding of regenerative, because I am a fan of everything I need to learn. I learned in kindergarten. Everything I need to know, I learned in kindergarten. And I think if you read the last thing, in the back of the book, and you give it to a kindergarten kid or to a CEO of a very complicated company, it's the same message. So I really think that I would like to have a very basic outcome or enticer of regenerative awareness, no matter if you are in kindergarten or in a very complicated boardroom. So if you ever do this, I'm here, I'm game.
Okay. Yeah, I think that we need to really focus on what regeneration is and make sure we're, in regenerative education and trying to move in the right direction. I think at one point in time, I'd like to look at the difference between sustainability and regeneration. The sustainability is a word that has been commonly used, but I think we need to move on. And some of the people in regeneration are saying that we need to move on, including the person that, like I said, that wrote the book I talking about, but she pointed out she teaches classes in Denmark, and she has kids coming in and they start talking about regeneration, and they said, well, yeah, but we are already, recycling, we are cutting back on our water use, we are doing this, we are already dealing with these problems. And she just had to tell him, oh, wait, hold a second, look at this data from the climate change data. These are what's really happening, and a lot of people are not aware how severe things are, and how important it is to to protect our world, to regenerate our world. Otherwise, we're not going to exist for very much longer. Colleen?
Yeah, I was just thinking about, why is it that nature doesn't translate well into the workplace? And I think it's because we've made the workplace unnatural.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny to think about it that way, but everything about corporations is pretty unnatural. And for the most part, it's very male in its orientation, because what I found is when I first came out of being a mother and joined the business world, I was like, you're sitting in these meetings, and sometimes they last a long time, like 2 hours. I was like, is anybody hungry? Doesn't anybody need to go to the bathroom? We totally ignored our human inclinations and sacrificed our humanity to this thing. And we don't even know what the thing is. Honestly. And so what I finally figured out after a while is, and sitting in board meetings and all these other things and all this high-minded stuff going on, and I'm just like, it's kind of bring it back to what you said about everything that was important to learn. I learned in kindergarten. And all of this kind of stuff where it says it's not personal, it's just business. That is the biggest bunch of crap I've ever heard in my life. It said, don't be emotional about business. And yet, every decision eventually gets down to somebody's feeling something about something. So let's stop pretending that this is a good model that we've created there in this corporate world. It's not a good model. And the fact that people commute 2 hours to work and spend 8 hours and then commute 2 hours to go home, I think that's the thing that we learned during COVID.
Yeah.
Is how stupid all that was. How much time we wasted was sitting in traffic for 2 hours. And so I just think that it's really, I think we're kind of primed in our culture now to kind of start thinking about things differently. And that gives me hope. So.
Okay. Well, we're at the end of our time today. We're at 1:04, actually gone over. So, I appreciate everybody showing up, and hoping you guys will, show up next week. I'm going to take the recording and post it on Slack. If you look, it's Regen Education. It's on the Slack document app, and the recording and the chat will be there. And then I'll also post, a little bit about the topic that we'll cover next week. Feel free to go into Slack, and if you, to post some of the things that you would like to see us covering. What are some of the topics that you would like to hear? And then if you know of any resources that we could use for presentations, I know I have one person, 2 sisters that are running a regenerative education podcast. And I contacted them because I went back, I was looking at what they had presented for, they started in like 2017. had some great podcasts. And so I said, if they asked them if they would be interested, or one of them interested to be, join our group and be a presenter. And they said, yeah, we'd love to. So I'd like to bring them in at some time. And if you know of any presenters that would give us a great presentation about regenerative education and the direction that we should be going in. I know there's a lot of people that don't have the time to sit here week after week, but they can, attend 1 or 2 meetings, and they're welcome to come in and share with us what they have to offer if you think they have something that's worthy of being offered and listened to. So, okay, so if any
Is this the same meeting tomorrow?
It's going to be the same meeting. Yes. What I did was, actually, it was kind of funny. I had 2 people that said they really, really wanted to be a part of the group, but they said we can't attend because, it's at 1 or 2 o'clock in the evening, at night, and I'm going, oh, in the morning, it's just like, oh, that's not right. And so if I've got 2 people, and then Chick said that he was interested, I thought, okay, that's 4. I'll run a group with 4 people in it. And you guys kind of outdid it. We've had 11 people here today's drop in, but the funny thing is the 2 people that wanted this group didn't show up. So anyway, I'll contact them again. So they told me they could do it on Tuesday, and I gave them the time, and so that's what this was, is to try to open it up to people from the UK and Europe and Eastern Europe. So yeah, so because we got more worldwide. Somebody had talked about the possibility of rotating it, like the population or some of the groups rotate every month with a different time every week, and at some point in time we might do that. At some point in time, I'd like to get both groups together so we can discuss things together. We might do that on a Saturday or on a weekend when everybody can attend. But yeah. So, and then, I'd be open to any time, if you guys have discussions as to, what times would work better, just, let me know, drop me a note, and we'll start looking at other times. I know that collaboration, when you get too many people, I don't know the exact number, but, it gets hard to do a collaboration. Collaboration is best when done in smaller groups. And so I need to get to better at using Zoom and using the breakout rooms, and we can break out. And there's some people that want to create something. We can get those people working together. Some people may want to focus on higher education. We can break out and do a breakout group on higher education and do different group, because I do want to meet the needs and interests of all the people that want to show up. So.
Well, thank you much.
Okay, thank you guys. Hopefully we'll see you back next week.
Okay.
Stop the recording now. Bye.